Let's start with one thing you, of course, mentioned in your speech, and I want to talk about the word negotiation.
Okay.
When you talk about negotiation, what kind of negotiation do you have in mind? Is it any kind of interaction, or is it negotiation in the business sense, meaning not a communicative interaction?
Both. I think to a certain extent, when I empower you, when I turn you into a customer with access to the entire world in 0.2 of a second and in 6 keystrokes, you can negotiate anything you want with me. I think the big challenge we have, and I'm speaking with several organizations about this now, we need to retrain the sales force. Every salesperson has to be retrained, because salespeople essentially are coming in and trying to convince and persuade, and while they do some negotiation, by and large their job is to persuade. And I think what we really are probably going to have to do is retrain the sales force in various areas. No longer is it necessary for them to know all about the product. They better know all about the customer. Because when they walk in, the customer says, I want to do this and this and this and this and this. Can you help me? And the salesperson says, can I get back to you? Because they cannot be trained to do all of those kinds of things. They cannot have all of that immediately at hand. So I think there's going to be a big view of whether or not we're persuading, and how do we negotiate with customers who are smarter than we are.
Then sticking to this, what can be negotiated? I mean, when we look at corporations, and when you talk about negotiation, of course, you said that people can compare prices and then they can negotiate the price and so on. Of course, that's what I can easily understand and grab. But what else can be negotiated in that sense, looking at the entire corporation maybe?
I can negotiate terms. I can negotiate any of the things that are involved in the transfer or exchange process. The thing that I have to think about in terms of negotiation is I have to move away from this idea that we are there to rape and pillage a customer and move on. We're going to have to figure out ways to say, how do we share this so we can continue our relationship, so that we can continue ongoing relationships. Today, the focus is on get the sale, get out, and move on to someone else. Most marketing, most business-to-business marketing is focused still on give me sales leads, not help me build relationships.
Building relationships is, of course, something that I'm coming more from the public relations discipline, so that's why I'm trying to argue now. Negotiation is, of course, one of the main goals of PR, and one of the main phrases that came up in PR in the last 15 years.
Right.
And public relations, some of my colleagues, they understand it as relationship management. So can marketing communicators learn something from public relations communicators?
Probably not. I'm going only on previous experience. No, I think one of the things that we have to think about is PR has a much broader brushstroke than marketing people. PR looks at lots of different things. They try to understand the employees, they try to understand the influencers, they try to understand the relationships and so on. They have a much broader view of what communication is than marketing people. Marketing, advertising, communication people essentially have focused on the things that they could buy as distribution channels. Now the PR people have come at it from the other side and said, how do I think about who I can get on my side so they'll help me promote this? So I think the PR people have been doing negotiation a whole lot longer than the marketing people have.
Yeah, right. Sticking to this idea of
Was that the wrong answer?
No, of course not.
Okay.
Sticking to this idea of looking at something more from a holistic standpoint or point of view, then I of course want to talk about your idea of the shift of control from the marketers to the customers. And if this shift is really happening, and I guess there is something like this out there in the field, what does it mean to the role of the marketing communicator, the role of the marketer? How does it change today, and how can it develop?
If I had that answer, I would not be here this evening. I would be sitting under a palm tree. People would be bringing me large sums of money and tossing it at my feet.
I would like to join you there.
Okay, join me there. No, but I'm being facetious. But what does it really mean? I think to a certain extent, we really are going to have to reinvent marketing and communication as we've always known it. I think we really have to start rethinking all of this. Part of what has driven my thinking is if you look at an organization, makes no difference what kind of a marketing firm it is, by and large their whole focus is on acquisition. Well, it's not too hard to do integrated marketing communication in an acquisition mode. That is, all I've got to do is get things to look the same and kind of make sure it goes out and make sure there are not any conflicts and just keep sending that stuff out. When I start talking about retention, that opens up a whole different genre of what marketing communicators have to do. Because retention says I have to deal with customer service, I have to deal with technical support, I have to deal with retailers, I have to deal with all of those places where people get and come in contact with me, my company, and my brand. That's a whole broad new spectrum for marketing and marketing communication. And we, quite frankly, have not done that and have not done it very well. And so if you want to say the PR people are able to do that, fine, I won't disagree with you. But the marketing people have been focused almost entirely on acquisition. And that's what's created the problem. We didn't worry about retention, and we didn't worry about retention because there were always a whole bunch more customers out there. If you look at a lot of the developed economies, there aren't a whole lot more new customers. In fact, we're looking at population declines. And so one of the things that has to happen is you have to start thinking about how do I keep customers, not just how do I get them.
This shift of control, does it lead to a situation where maybe organizations, corporations may lose their boundaries, that their boundaries disintegrate because the customer is in control of the process?
Well, it really creates problems for organizations in terms of the way they're structured. Where most organizations are structured in functional silos. Customers look at it and say, I don't care what your functional silos are, I've got a problem, can you solve it? And you say, well, that's over in the other group over here and I don't talk to those guys. And so that's really what creates the problems. I argue that the biggest problem that organizations have is they're organized incorrectly for today's marketplace. They're organized vertically, they need to be organized horizontally. So they can bring all of these things together and really try to solve customer problems or provide customer service or whatever you want to call it.
That's, of course, one very important point, I guess. Another point may be that when I asked you about, well, do we see a disintegration of boundaries between organizations and customers, it might be that customers may be involved via negotiation in marketing campaigns. Do you see?
Yes.
Do you have examples for that?
I think that's entirely possible. The thing